very long. As you probably have figured out already, I was not born in this country, but this is my 50th year in the UK. And I came for 1 year. And I've lived for 47 years in southeast London, which I defend to the end, because I think it's a fantastic area in which to live. And this is one of the schools in my local area. So this is where I am volunteering, and I'll come back to it, but I feel incredibly privileged to be volunteering in this school. I think it's an amazing school. And I do believe that if you don't start children on the right road when they're very young, that's where all the education money should be put. I was a university lecturer, and therefore I have a PhD from Imperial College. All of that is in my past. But this is where the importance is in little children. Okay, so we'll start there. I'll tell you my history. I had a mother who somehow learnt about a radio program about good food. I was just telling Tim that I used to dream about having white bread. So I did grow up with very healthy food. But like a lot of children, even in year 6 in this school, I began to worry about my weight. I considered myself overweight. I didn't weigh more than I do now. From very early on, I knew the calorie content of everything I was eating. And I also know that boys didn't care at all, and they just stuffed something down their throats so they weren't hungry anymore. So they were neither me nor them were really involved in the nutrition of what we were eating. So we were really just missing out on eating good food. One of the reasons why I stayed in this country is because I went to an international students' party and met a Greek Cypriot who is obsessed with food. Like a lot of Mediterranean people, he would sit down with his mother just after we finished eating and discuss what the next meal was going to be. And the meals were 17 people at the table, and much of it was grown by the family. And so there we go. Well, we're still obsessed with food, or he is still obsessed with food. We have allotments. We have chickens in our garden in Blackheath. There you go. Okay, so that's sort of my background. I do know a lot about plants. I have a doctorate in plant physiology. I still teach at Kew Gardens, so I know a lot about plants, but I also taught environmental health. So I know about the nutritional content of food as well, and what plants can provide for the human diet. I was just in the States visiting my brother. I saw a community garden there, and in Washington, D.C., and school gardens. So they're as involved as we are, and there's a new project that's just been signed out by the the U.S. government, to look at the microbiome. In other words, what you have in your gut in terms of microflora, what bacteria you have, and how that's impacted by the food that we're eating, and how important that information is to being healthy in this world. But let's get back to the school. The school bases its teaching around food. It doesn't base its teaching about dinosaurs. It doesn't base its teaching about even space or computer games or whatever it is. It bases its teaching around food, and it's mainly food out in the garden, which is mainly where I volunteer. I love it. Children come out to the garden to learn about centimeters and millimeters by measuring the height of daffodils. Just amazing. So everything is done around the garden and food and what they can eat. The children come out and give the waste food from lunch to the chickens. They collect the eggs at the end of the day. So there's so much in this school that I enjoy. And I love the little children coming up to me and asking me stupid questions. When I was doing pollination with one class, one boy said to me, "Do they grade plant embryos that are in the seed?" And I, what? And he said, this was the week after I did it, and he said, "Yeah, because I was an A1 embryo." So children are using their brains in amazing ways. Nobody else in the school knew that. I'm a volunteer. They can say whatever they like to me, and that's fine. So I'm having the best time of my life. It's probably the most interesting thing I've done. We all have a cookbook. This is an American cookbook, but it's called The Joy of Cooking. You can see it's well used. We all have one that we use more than any other. I love it. And I also have the joy of eating due to the family I have. Oh, I should also tell you, I had a son who didn't like to eat. And so I used to make soup with chicken broth and vegetables and blitz it and put a bit of milk in. And my son called it bogey soup, okay? And he also, and this is another story from him, and he said one time, "You're the worst mother in the whole world." And I said, "Why do you say that?" I said, "Who's a better mother?" I didn't say who's a better mother? And he mentioned one of the mothers of the children in his class, and I said, "Why is she a better mother?" And he said, "Because she gives her children sweets before they go to sleep at night." Just think about that, okay? Lovely. There are so many interesting stories that you can tell about children and what they are thinking about. And that son is now a chef, and not a chef. He doesn't get employed as a chef, but he cooks and cooks and cooks. So you can influence children and have a great time doing it, and my goodness, they do become good adults with a good attitude to food. End of story.
Thanks, Renee.
Okay.
So thanks for that. Yeah, so as you know, we predominantly